Actress Holly, a former member of the K-pop girl band FX, was found dead Monday afternoon.
Netflix's Bloodhounds is dead at the age of 24.
Says that Tail has been accused in a criminal case related to a sexual crime.
I actually had a different video planned, but since the Kim Soo-Hyun news as well as the consecutive controversies surrounding Korea, I felt compelled to make a video not just about him, but the prevalent issues that seemingly never stop when we look at the Korean entertainment industry, and how that's reflective of Korean society. There was a time, albeit brief, when I was really into K-pop music, 6 months to be exact, specifically BTS, and then came K-dramas before I just became obsessed with Korean culture. And although my brief stint as a K-pop enthusiast ended a long time ago, I partly remained interested in Korean culture and K-dramas. And part of the reason I even stopped listening to K-pop is because, apart from the inauthentic nature of the industry, I started to feel icky about participating in an industry that is seemingly unhealthy on all those who come into contact with it. From the idols themselves to the fans who worship these idols. Since the Hallyu in the late 90s, which was the rise of Korean culture gaining global popularity, which only exponentially rose in the 2010s, Korea has been able to capitalize growing its soft power that's given a spotlight to K-pop artists like BTS and Blackpink, K-dramas such as Secret Garden and Boys Over Flowers, Korean movies such as Parasite, which won Best Pictures at the Oscars, Korean cosmetics, skincare products, fashion, food, and even the Korean language. The rise of Korea booze was inevitable, and it's generated billions to the Korean economy. Everyone and their mothers want to either move to Korea or visit Korea. However, as a result of this rapid rise, Korea the country, separate from what is being sold to us through the music, the dramas, and the fashion, has been hyper-romanticized that some people are only just realizing that the version of Korea they built up in their heads and the actual reality of Korea are two very different places. Kim Soo-Hyun isn't the first and won't be the last of an entertainment industry that's most likely filled with people foaming at the mouth to take advantage of literal children, who they'll groom to perpetuate their abuse onto the next generation, who will do anything to get into the industry. The initial red flag that decided that K-pop wasn't for me came in December 2018. Just 2 months prior, I'd spent £250 on fake tickets and then an additional £290 on real tickets just so I could watch BTS perform at the O2. I was in my first year of university studying law and politics, living away from home for the first time, and all I was fixated on was trying to do the K-pop idol diet. Eating a banana and exercise for breakfast, air for lunch, and 1 boiled egg and a sweet potato for dinner. There were and there are still plethoras of videos online helping people achieve the idol look of starvation. And then take into consideration that most K-pop fans are impressionable young people who are most likely teenage girls. Of course, I'm aware there are fans who are older and have loved K-pop and Korean culture as long as I've been alive, but my point still stands. You see the idols go from a healthy weight to losing a large amount of weight in a short period of time, which tells you it couldn't have been done healthily. This on top of the fact that these idols were and are overworked, to the point where they're unable to support their own weight on stage from exhaustion. And although unhealthy beauty standards exist everywhere, they exist to a devilish amount in Asia, specifically in Korea and China. But China's a different topic for another day. And I fundamentally disagree with those who say K-pop idols are just naturally skinny, or that they train hard so of course they're skinny. There's a reason why a lot of male idols put on weight and look so much healthier during their military enlistments. They're arguably training harder, but being allowed to eat 3 meals a day changes their appearance, because they most likely weren't living a healthy lifestyle before, regardless of what they might have been sharing online. The more you look into the early lives of your favorite K-pop idols, the more reluctant you should feel about supporting that industry in general. Most of the time, you have teenagers, some barely even teenagers, being trained and worked overtime into becoming idols, They're crammed into dormitories that are surely safety hazards and would have CPS involved in some countries. They're scrutinized to the point where their food is controlled, their looks are controlled, who they can and can't meet is controlled, including their families, until they reach a point where they're famous enough to be given autonomy. You've got teenagers getting plastic surgeries, changing their entire faces before they've fully developed, and bleaching their skin because they're in a highly toxic and colorist industry that cares about their aesthetic before their talents or their health. This is also reflected in K-dramas, especially with the increasing amount of idols turning to acting. Look back to even 10-15 years ago. Actors in Korea were of course attractive, but they looked more normal. They looked like real people. If you look at pictures of actors and idols when they first entered the industry and compare them before to them today, apart from the obvious plastic surgeries, they look like they've changed races. Anything for the proximity to whiteness, I guess. The thing is, normal Korean people don't look like these Korean celebrities, but even then, this unhealthy beauty standard set by the Korean entertainment industry has had real-life effect on Korean society. There's a reason Korea is known as the plastic surgery capital of the world. And although men and women are pressured by the unattainable beauty standards, there's no surprise that these standards are not equally distributed, as women are more pressured into getting plastic surgeries, as 1 in 3 women in South Korea have undergone some form of plastic surgery. South Korea, a relatively small country, amounts to 24% of all plastic surgeries, more than America, more than Turkey. And these beauty standards are crossing borders to young people in other countries. I don't want to blame these celebrities, specifically K-pop idols, who are usually younger, but it gets to a point where they choose to participate and perpetuate the very standards that have been so harmful to them. Along with the beauty standards, what the Korean entertainment industry has been known for lately has been the sheer amount of celebrities unaliving themselves and the ridiculous standards that's placed on them. To thrive as a Korean celebrity, specifically an idol, you have to be cute but sexy while portraying yourself to be a single celibate monk or nun who's never thought about having sex, has never smoked or done anything remotely not perfect in your life, as to not pop the bubble in the parasocial relationships your fans have cultivated with you. Idols literally receive hate, death threats, and are slut-shamed for daring to date. In 2024, after insane backlash, threats of boycotts, and protests using funeral wreaths, Soo-Hyun was kicked out of Rise by SM Entertainment. For what crime, you may ask? For the crime of kissing a girl and smoking. I will state that most of the backlash and threats were coming from K-netizens, and this distinction to how Korean netizens see idols in comparison to international fans is a result of Korean society and the strict, suffocating expectations they've placed on these usually young idols. Using funeral wreaths to protest a 21-year-old doing normal 21-year-old things is so evil and should be seen as a form of death threat. That's not normal. A celebrity who doesn't know you even exist should not be driving you to such jealousy and bitterness. If it is, I urge you to get help because that's truly not normal. The problem though is that it's been normalized in Korea that most idols and actors, those who want to be big in the industry, don't get married or even have a public relationship until later in life, usually in their late 30s or 40s, because they're grappling with finding the middle ground of their jobs, which is dictated by their society, which tells them they're not allowed to date, but also their society pressuring them to date and have children, because Korea specifically, the older generation, their parents' generation, is a traditional conservative society that holds value in marriage. And they're still facing the pressure to live up to that. On top of this, your agency is likely to put money and public perception over supporting you. SM Entertainment could have stood up for Soo-Hyun, not put him on hiatus, before eventually releasing him from his contractual obligation to the group. What's happened to Soo-Hyun has been set as a precedent before him and will continue to set a precedent after him. The entertainment agencies have given all the power to the crazies, and their idols are forced to live under the authoritarianism of what they dictate. The level of scrutiny and vigilantism, as well as the unforgiving nature of the Korean entertainment industry and Korean society, is why there's a trend where K-pop idols and K-drama actors are pushed to unaliving themselves. There's a problem where most of the time, the key factors in these celebrities unaliving themselves is their society. It's the unattainable expectations they have to meet, and the severe consequences they face when they inevitably fall short. They're punished to a level that almost no human can survive. And yet, when the rumors, the isolation, and the abuse finally succeeds in their purpose, netizens and Korean society disregards the obvious and looks for blame elsewhere. In the death of Han Jae-won, he owned several businesses that weren't doing well. He owed billions of wons to private lenders, including friends, and was facing online boycotts from netizens, as well as receiving malicious comments. And from the way we've seen K netizens show disapproval and threaten boycotts in the case of Soo-Hyun, we know to what extent people are willing to go. However, when his body was found, people needed someone to blame, and the people he owed money to were vilified as loan sharks who drove him to his demise. Choi Jin-sil was a close friend of Han Jae-won, who, as she was grieving a dear friend, was now facing groundless rumors and backlash, being blamed for his death. Even the picture of her still in shock of her friend's death at the hospital his body was taken to was ran with the caption, "Actress in shock, not being able to get the money back from dead actor." A commercially successful and thriving actress who was nicknamed the nation's actress only 40 days after her friend unaliving himself was bullied into unaliving herself. She was vilified to the point where she didn't want to exist anymore. Her last words were her saying, "As the victim of internet hate, I don't think abusive comments should be allowed. I want to campaign to stop them, retire from entertainment and do charity work, like Audrey Hepburn. I'm tired of it all." In Korea, you can be the most successful, most beloved celebrity, and once the public has a perception of you, whether it's true or false, they will run with it and perpetuate it, where the only escape is death. I remember the moment I found out about Sully's death. I was never an avid fan. I was barely on the cusp of being considered a real K-pop fan. But seeing the way people talked about her before she died and how people talked about her after made me sick. I don't want to say she was being cyberbullied, because it was way more than that. And you would wonder why she was being so viscerally criticized to the point that it would drive her into a deep depression that later ended her life. Well, she was a feminist. It feels like a joke, but it's not. She was a feminist in a society that pushes homogeneity and rejects individualism, simply for the fact that she didn't act, dress, or think in the way they expected a Korean celebrity to. They literally bullied her to unaliving herself. And bear in mind, she was only 25 at the time. A month later, Guhara, a friend of Sully, was found unalived after her ex-boyfriend, the demon we shall not name today, assaulted her in 2018 and threatened to release a sex video of them. This, on top of the normalized scrutiny and harassment that Korean celebrities face, plus her friend dying, was too much for her to bear, and she took her own life. Also, consider that she wasn't just receiving normalized abuse from being in the industry, she was also receiving abuse because of the legal battle she was experiencing with her demon of an ex. She was the victim, but was facing backlash instead of sympathy. A month after Guara, Cha In-hwa was found after unaliving himself. In the span of 3 months, 3 different young, successful Korean celebrities unalived themselves. So many more happen each year that don't get as much spotlight, but they're consistently happening. Lee Sung-kyun, although he'd just been in arguably his most successful role in Parasite, he'd been a staple in Korean dramas for over 2 decades. This is hard for me to record because I'd seen and loved him as an actor since his earlier dramas such as Coffee Prince and Pasta, and there was some of my first introduction into K-dramas. Even his short cameo in the 2004 movie Love So Divine as Man in Love. It was wonderful seeing his newfound international success in the film industry. You wouldn't think someone who'd found so much success outside of Korea would also be crushed by the weight of the impossible standards and scrutiny Korean celebrities are put under. He was under investigation for drug use, and Korean society need less than that to obliterate your sense of wanting to live. I don't condone illegal drug use, but the unbridled way in which he was being covered by the Korean media, they ought to be tried for manslaughter. The irony is that the people who take to the internet to harass these celebrities could probably never imagine themselves living under that type of scrutiny. Even if he had willingly taken illegal substances, the punishment does not fit the crime. After his death, 2 women were sentenced to prison for attempting to extort him, but this was information we knew or we should have known. If only the media hadn't been so biased and tried to push a narrative. they would have been as loud in declaring that he was potentially deceived into taking illegal drugs by these women so that they could blackmail and extort him. He stated this to the police, and only after he'd been pushed to unaliven himself did those women face any repercussions. In these cases, we see instances where entertainment agencies don't do nearly enough to protect their talents. The Korean media is just as evil as the British one, and Korean society and the pressures that come with it is arguably the biggest factor that leads people to no longer wanting to exist. Korea doesn't take mental health issues as seriously as they ought to, which is why Korea has the highest rate of unalivings amongst developed nations. Asia in general doesn't take mental health issues seriously enough. Even after unaliving yourself, you're still likely to face backlash for doing so. It's not that there's no awareness of mental health, but there's a lack of understanding and awareness in how to provide help for those struggling, which is why it remains so prevalent beyond just the entertainment industry. Everyone, including young children in academia, are suffering. I watched a really informative video by Humanity, which I recommend everyone to go and watch after this video. The pressures at schools is a whole other video, but the pressure to be perfect, live up to the impossible standards and expectations is debilitating, and no one's surviving. Korean society seems to be hurting itself trying to preserve this toxic part of its culture. Sexuality is a really interesting and contradictory element of Korean society. On one hand, Korea is super conservative and traditional, but on the other hand, its entertainment industry, especially K-pop, is super sexualized. I've mentioned already the ridiculous beauty standards for Korean celebrities and how it's only attainable using plastic surgeries and living an unhealthy lifestyle, where they have to excessively work out, barely eat, and bleach their skin or cover their entire body in white makeup.
What the hell is this? Why he look like he took a shower in baby powder? I'ma need these idols to stop with the snow app, please. Look at this. Baby, you look sick. This shit ain't even cool. I thought y'all was BTS, not the Volturi. Jungkook, Cullen looking ass.
And although in most entertainment industries, male and female celebrities have these burdens placed upon them, it's always disproportionately placed on female celebrities. However, the Korean entertainment industry is one of the few entertainment industries where the beauty standard is the closest to being equally distributed between male and female talents. Part of this, I think, is because the masculinity expected from male stars in Korea is different to what's generally considered masculine in the West. Male K-pop idols are expected to be more softly masculine, being what you would describe as flower boys, participating in Aegyo, and expected to look more pretty with an emphasis on cuteness. This is similar to female idols who are expected to be soft, feminine, and cute. For female K-pop idols, there is this push and pull that they must balance the Madonna Hall complex. Being able to be sexy and sexualized, but also cute and play into dollification, which is essentially being a living doll that can be controlled and is submissive. Dollification is heavily influenced by kawaii and Lolita ideals. Female K-pop idols are supposed to present girl power and strong sexual femininity, while selling, may I call it, P3DO, infantilization and soft femininity to men.
종국이랑 먹고 싶어. 종국이랑 먹고 싶어.
아이고. 와 이건 진짜 마지막 간다 이거 던진다 지금 마지막 거 국
꾸꾸까까.
K-pop is highly systemically sexualized into both male and female idols, but more so disproportionately towards female idols because the industry is patriarchal and run by men. In the case of Jang Jae-hyun, who was in Boys Over Flowers, her agent Kim Sung-soon allegedly had been regularly beating her and forcing her to sleep with a string of VIPs, including directors, media executives, and CEOs, which ultimately led her to unaliving herself. In 2019, the Burning Sun scandal took Korea by storm. Celebrities including K-pop idols were involved in chat rooms that exposed multiple counts of SA and rape, the use of date rape drugs, embezzlement, sexual bribery, and many more horrific behaviors. The scandal involved extremely famous K-pop idols and CEOs such as Soo-Hyun, Seungri, and Jung Jin-young, as well as police officials who were charged for misuse of power and accepting bribes. There were also issues with illegal filming of women and their distribution. This is a reflection of a wider issue in Korea and Japan of secret spy cameras hidden in places such as public bathrooms and changing rooms for the explicit videos to be distributed in chat rooms or on porn websites. Part of the way male K-pop idols are sexualized uses the soft masculinity that almost makes you think they're safe. It makes you forget that they've been socialized as men in a patriarchal society. Kim Soo-Hyun has always had this sweet, soft boy aesthetic. He seemed safe, that people felt comfortable using him as an example of a Korean male star that would never, when NCT's Tail's sexual scandal came out. But a few months later, it's alleged that at 27 years old, he was dating the 15-year-old actress Kim Se-ron. On multiple occasions, he denied dating Kim Se-ron, and only after she was driven to unaliven herself did he admit that they had dated for allegedly 6 years. He is someone who'd gained fame from such a young age. The Moon Embracing the Sun was one of my favorite dramas that really got me into K-dramas, and she was a child star who should have been nothing but a mentee to this adult man, but instead he was sending her private letters talking about how he was thinking about her when he was completing his military service, while he was 30 and she was still a minor at 17. She was crucified, lost endorsements and film opportunities due to drunk driving. She collided with a guardrail and a transformer. Of course, driving under the influence is terrible, but she did not deserve the hate she received from her country. She released a handwritten statement apologizing to the people she'd caused damages to, as well as those who had to restore and fix the damages she caused. She also apologized to the actors, staff members, and production team who were affected on the productions that she was working on at the time of the incident. On top of that, she was also personally working on compensating for the damages she caused. She was a 21-year-old who made a mistake. Yes, age isn't an excuse, but she could have been given some grace for someone who made a mistake and was willing to rectify that mistake. She was apologetic and she didn't physically hurt anyone. This situation could have been a learning moment for her, an incident that helped her be better in the future. Instead, people used that mistake to make sure she had no future. The punishment didn't fit the crime. The grace and sympathy that she deserved when she was still alive is only being shown to her now that she's gone. South Korea has some serious issues like the Nth Room case, where chats including men and boys, literal children, were trading and sharing explicit and sexually exploitative videos of women in their lives, such as their classmates, their friends, and their female family members. There was a chat that included 15,000 men, and the exploitative images of women were shared to over 60,000 users. They would use these horrific videos to blackmail women, forcing them to take sexually exploitative videos. Since this case was made public in 2020, there have been many attempts to recreate these chat rooms, including one in 2024, which included boys using AI to create deep fakes of the women in their lives. These are the issues women in South Korea are facing. Actually, these are the issues women all around the world are facing. But although these issues are cropping up outside of Korea, it's at a level in Korea that hasn't been seen anywhere else. This video is about the Korean entertainment industry, but I think that this case is such a reflection of being able to understand what Korean women are facing and how this is reflected in the industry, and why the 4B movement has garnered attention not just in Korea but now all over the world. The 4Bs represent Pihon, Bichusan, Piyunei, and Biseksu. I'm sorry if I butchered any of those Korean words, which means the refusal to date men, marry men, have sex with men, or have children with men. And we've seen this movement, but also just the reaction to the excessive sexualization and degradation of women have real-life impacts on Korean society. For 8 consecutive years from 2015, the South Korean birth rate continued to drop to a global record low of 0.72 in 2023. And although in 2024 it rose to 0.75, it remains a global record low, making South Korea the country with the world's lowest birth rates. The Korean government have declared the low birth rate a national emergency. They've invested billions trying to reverse this trend by implementing initiatives such as subsidized housing, childcare support, shared parental leaves, and flexible work employment schedules. None of this seems to be working. And until the Korean government actually addresses the reason why women are choosing not to get married and start families, they will continue to fail. The 4B movement is truly an entire video in itself. The South Korean entertainment industry is one that continues to thrive, but the more popular it gets, the more the dark sides and the exploitations of the industry will get exposed. But I also think that as the Korean wave is past its peak and has become almost a novelty, lots of fans are able to stop idealizing and romanticizing Korea and its culture. Post 2020, people are actually able to travel to Korea and experience it, to realize that like any other country, it has its good, its bad, and its ugly. K-pop idols are imperfect human beings, regardless of their jobs as idols. The same goes for any other Korean and non-Korean celebrities. We don't know these people and what they are or aren't capable of. So once we remove them from this pedestal, where they can only be perfect. The people without benefits will be everyone involved. This video was really tough to make, considering some of the information I had to read about during my research. Some that couldn't even be included in this video today. But I hope people enjoyed watching this video and learned something about the Korean entertainment industry. If anyone is struggling with anything mentioned in this video today, I've linked some help below. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.